Je vais juste remercier, just want to thank all the professional decision makers who are here today. We are very happy and honored to accept our invitation. And we are waiting to hear the exchange with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. So it's a roundtable about content acquisition, catalog configuration, and original programming strategies. And I'm very happy to welcome Team Wescott, Jérôme Chung, Catherine Bernard. I will introduce them to you briefly. Donc, Team Wescott is Omdia's senior principal analyst. He has been analyst for various private companies or public institutes, providing business intelligence, research, and analysis on the global media markets, such as Screen Digest, Observatoire Européen de l'Audiovisuel. In the past, he was a regular contributor to publications, including Broadcast, Variety, Television Business International, World Screen News, and Écran-Total, French Écran-Total. Hope I didn't forget it. Jérôme Chung made his whole career in the entertainment and content industry in different marketing, sales, and distribution positions, such as Universal Music, La Fnac, and then as general manager of business units within media groups. For instance, in 1996, he created Warner Vision France, which was the first video publisher entirely devoted to musical and non-film programs in DVD format. Then he joined the Canal Group in 1999 to head the video and music divisions of Studio Canal, its feature film production and distribution branch. And in 2006, he collaborated as senior consultant for the development of the VOD platform Université, dedicating to independent film producers and distributors. And finally, in 2011, he founded Under the Milky Way, a service company dedicated to the digital distribution and marketing of films and audiovisual products. Catherine Bernard is Deputy Chief Executive of France TV Distribution. Previously, she was the Deputy CEO in charge of corporate and digital activities of Lagardère Studios, where she spent 16 years in various positions related to the financial department and the group's European development before being assigned to the management. I thank the three of them for being present today, for having this discussion around content acquisition, catalog configuration, and programming strategies. I asked each one to present an hypothesis or a statement about the discussion, and then we'll have a discussion around the four questions, and then we take questions from the public, if you are from the audience, if you are okay with that. So I will be starting from Catherine.
Yes, thank you so much for the invitation. Apologies because I'm quite sick, so my voice is not loud.
It's not COVID.
No, I'm just not COVID. I just set myself so I can recover. So, yes, today I have the commercial subsidiary of France Télévisions. So I mostly deal with sales, and that's the prism I can have today regarding the content acquisition, catalog configuration. So if the question is about the streamers, we can have a look at the investments of the streamers, which are becoming huge in France today because of this smart decree. You're all aware of the smart decree, which means that we think that it's around 200 or 250 million euros of new investments per year from the streamers, which will occur from 2022. Which means that's actually 80% for audiovisual and 20% for movies, which is quite important. And we organize the whole audiovisual market in France because there are so many money coming in the market. It's changing. I'm sorry because sorry about my English. So that's the first thing. The second thing is the media chronology. We have currently 22% of the total sales. I mean, I'm dealing with sales. So if we want to think about the programming, the acquisition of the streamers in France, I'm the opposite. I'm thinking about sales. So 22% of French sales are dealing with worldwide sales. But there are more and more right splits and more AVOD, because almost 20% of those sales are dealing with AVOD. I will all common with TVOD, AVOD, etc. Which means that the way the streamers invest in programs is changing nowadays. So first, they pre-purchase and then don't purchase any, which means that the sales are, the French sales to streamers are remaining on the same level, because they don't purchase a lot, they just pre-purchase, because all they want is having originals. And as they do want some originals, they will create their own programs regarding the smart decree. They have money to invest in order to create their own programs. And then you pre-purchase some others in order, because in the smart decree, they have obligations of investments. They also have obligations of broadcasting. And they have to broadcast some European and French content in their national opens, which means that they invest a lot also in pre-purchasing, or they purchase some very real catalog rights. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is that they purchase less and less because of the right splits. And I will explain the right splits, which is very important, the windows we have in rights. And because of the fact that they purchase for AVOD and not only for SVOD. AVOD is a new SVOD. So perhaps you can just, I'm sorry because my slides are in French. Those ones, and perhaps we can move the previous one, but so that you can read it. Everyone can read.
L'image est décalée. Je sais pas. Un partage d'écran.
So this is like what's important in order to understand the way. Or perhaps you can just move the stats pour les clients à l'échelle, c'est vrai, l'échelle, on va voir si ça marche. C'est bon?
C'est bon.
Allez. Mais moi, je n'ai pas une bonne lunette. Non, c'est pas mieux. Non, c'est même pire. C'était mieux avant. C'était mieux avant.
Tu peux pas.
Ben, je vais essayer, hein, de continuer. Je m'applique. Et voilà.
So I have made a few slides about the media chronology in order to explain all the windows who are so complicated right now that it's very difficult for the streamers to purchase properly on a worldwide basis, which means that they have to purchase country by country. For instance, Netflix purchase in France, UK, and Spain, but not Italy and not Germany because the chronology is different. More and more. No, let's make sure. Okay. So it's for instance, yeah, this is the first example of a France TV right. That's France TV because that's the company I'm working for, but the split is almost the same in all the other French channels. So they purchase, when they produce an audiovisual program, they have the right, the linear rights for 36 months if it's a series, and 30 months if it's a one shot. That's for instance on fiction. They have all backs on SVOD for 36 months. They have all backs on SVOD from 12 to 24 months, depending on the investment, which means that for a certain amount they have 12, and the more expensive the program is, the more huge the rollback. Plus, they have free rights for 6 months, which means that if you are Netflix or Disney Plus or whoever, and you want to purchase something, you can't purchase the series before 36 months. If you want the free, but for instance, if you're Salto and you want to purchase, I mean, Salto is quite, or Arte, because tomorrow Arte will invest as well in the new platform, European platform. You can't purchase before 36 months unless France TV or the channel accept to open the rollback. And if they accept to open the rollback, they have to fix their own price of rollback because it's quite expensive to open the rollback, and it will be different from each country. Okay, nice. So that's for linear. Which means that it's I mean, we have excess country per country in order to understand the windows. And the streamers can't purchase the way they used to do, let's say 2 years ago, because all those windows are so complicated. They can't have, I mean, it's much more easy for them to produce than to purchase rights. So I mean, programs per programs, they are negotiating rollbacks. For instance, in Call My Agent, 10%, or we just saw the Vortex, which is a new TV series, France Television TV series, which will be broadcasted in next November. And Netflix has negotiated the rollbacks for almost 10 months. And France Télévisions, there's a split between Netflix, Disney Plus, France Télévisions, and Salto. So we have to negotiate with France Télévisions, with Salto, with Disney Plus, and with Netflix. Because when a channel decides to deal the rollback, you have to deal it with all the platforms interested in order to have the right windows with all the platforms, which is a nightmare. The next slide is about VOD. So that's PVOD for 46 months, and rollbacks non-linear for 46 months. And yeah, that's the example next month on Call My Agent season 4, which means that we had 36 months on exclusive rights on France TV, Then we have SVOD on Netflix for 24 months, but with a start 3 months after the broadcasting of the first episode on France 2. We had Salto for 12 months, because it was to be confirmed. Because Salto already had agreements with France Télévisions, TF1, and M6, because they are the shareholders. It was confirmed. And then you have the replay. The replay is FreeVOD. It's quite complicated because territory for territory. Sometimes FreeVOD is called AVOD, and sometimes it's called FreeVOD. If you don't want to pay the shareholder, the owner of the rights, you call it FreeVOD. And if you are okay to pay the owner of the rights, you call it AVOD. For instance, in Fast TV, as its share, you call it AVOD. But for channels, you call it FreeVOD. Anyway. And then we have cinema, and cinema is even worse. What do you think, Jérôme? Because in France, we used to have a media chronology for cinema, but then we don't since 2 years. And the chronology has been negotiated, but obviously nobody respects the chronology, and we've seen the Disney announcement a few days ago, which means that it will be quite complicated. And the CNC announcement saying that they will try to deal with this new chronology. But then the launch, the theatrical launch, then 3 months after, you used to have DVD, but no DVD anymore. But anyway, let's say that we have DVD. 6 months after, you have pay TV with Canal Plus, which is moving also because I'm not sure that Canal Plus will continue to invest the amount they used to invest, because they just signed a new agreement. I don't know until when the new agreement is about Canal Plus, because they signed last year a new agreement in the financing cinema. You remember, they used to have 20% of their revenue, territorial revenue, to invest in cinema, and thanks to that, they had a 6-month window. I'm not sure that it will be the same in the future. Then for 16 months, if there's an agreement, but for Netflix there's an agreement, but some streamers have agreements with the ARCOM and some don't have the agreements with the ARCOM. So it's quite different streamer for streamer. Let's say Netflix has the ability to broadcast 15 months after, 17 months other streamers, 22 months free TV first window, and 36 AVOD and other. So that's from my perspective, the acquisition.
And that's why discussions about the media chronology time will restart quite soon in January to find an agreement that's less complicated. So hearing you, I had partly my answer for the first question I wanted to ask you. In 2021, Netflix announced a total of 552 original first runs. Is this a worldwide trend beyond Netflix? And is this downturn the result of COVID pandemic, or a more structural change in production and acquisition and investment? You answered from original content that there is a trend in original content that surpasses the sound acquisition. What do you think?
I can answer that because I think I recognise those figures. I think that's from an Omdia report. So yeah, just to explain what we were tracking, what we do is we look at all the original content which has been commissioned by global platforms, including Netflix, Amazon, Apple, and so on. And we did indeed see that in 2021, there was a reduction in the number of titles and obviously runtime that was commissioned by Netflix. I don't have a reason from Netflix whether this is, I don't have confirmation from them, because what I would say is that defining what is original and exclusive is quite complicated with Netflix. They will often present a show which they haven't really produced or originated as a Netflix original, because they are putting in a lot of money, because they're showing it for the first time in the US, for example. But our definition of original is that Netflix's money without Netflix's money, the production wouldn't exist. So it's very clear in some cases that it is branded as a Netflix production. Sometimes it may be a production where they have worldwide rights outside the country which commission the content. So anyway, it's our definition of originated. So you're asking, is this global? And yes, it is global. So what we're talking about here is the content that Netflix has commissioned globally for worldwide exhibition. But when you look at other streamers, they're not the same as Netflix. Netflix is very much an outlier. What I mean by that is that Netflix has really pioneered SVOD and streaming. What we think of today as streaming. Obviously, it's not the only company that's ever done streaming, but it's really the first one that has really introduced, concepts like binge watching, releasing all episodes of the series worldwide on the same day and date. And it's also investing an enormous amount of money, or has been over a number of years, an increasing amount of money in originating content. And one reason for that is that it doesn't have a library of content to fall back on. People like Disney and Universal have said, we don't want to license our content to Netflix. So a couple of years ago, they started pulling that content off Netflix, including some shows which did really well for Netflix, particularly in the US. So they're more or less obliged to pour money into originating content. And the reason I say they're an outlier is just that those numbers you were talking about are much larger than pretty much any other company operating in the audiovisual worldwide. Disney, we estimate, spends more on originating TV and online video, but it has a lot of linear channels as well as Disney Plus. So Netflix is was obliged to sort of fuel its worldwide growth by investing a lot in content. It's reaching a point now where it does have a lot of competition. So you may have seen that Disney now has as many online subscribers as Netflix. That's if you add Hulu and ESPN Plus, but the enormous lead that Netflix had in terms of subscribers has been narrowed to some extent by Disney. And Disney also has its library of existing rights to fall back on, the Pixar films, the Star Wars franchise, etc. And it has a lot of different outlets that it commissions content for. And it's also increasing the amount of origination that it does outside America as well. I think it was mentioned that Disney and Apple have almost no European content in Spain. And that certainly is what we saw in our research, but that is changing. They're both doing more origination in Europe. So is that because of COVID? I think probably that was one major reason. COVID obviously disrupted a lot of productions. A lot of productions were delayed or postponed. And so this year, what we're seeing is that Netflix has already launched 406 titles compared to the 552 that we say they launched last year. So you can see that they will probably go back up to growth in 2022. They're still increasing their commissioning. And just a couple more things to say about that. Another thing which sets Netflix apart is that they do an enormous amount of commissioning outside the US. They worked with studios in 37 countries with their origination last year in 2021. So all the ones we're familiar with, like Spain, South Korea, the UK, Canada, but also lots of other countries where they're just starting to do their sort of first co-production in lots of other countries. They're doing a lot Indonesia, Thailand, etc. So they really are looking for content worldwide. They have commissioning teams in lots of different parts of the world, and you know, they do sometimes have not very interesting deals with producers because they take all the rights. Although that we think is changing, they are becoming more flexible. And that content which they make outside the US is often cheaper than the content that they would make in America. So in Europe, a high-end drama is what, sort of 4 or 5 million euros an hour at the very top end. And obviously in America, we've seen that they're prepared to pay 20, 25 million an episode. So, you know, I guess an answer to your question, what's the reason, you know, is this a trend which is continuing? I think the market is reaching maturity. So as Catherine mentioned, AVOD is becoming a very big thing. So when we're looking at our forecasts, subscription video has been the fastest growing category of entertainment in the last few years. It will continue to grow, but the rate of growth is slow. So still growing, but not at the same rate we've seen. The big growth is going to come from online advertising. Netflix is launching an ad-supported tier next year. Amazon is already very much involved in advertising. It already has Freevee. It's always been in AVOD. Apple and Disney Plus and HBO Max, they all are now following a hybrid model. And I think we may see a slackening of growth or a decline in SVOD origination. But we are seeing more local SVOD origination. So we will see an increase in European production funded by the online groups. But we'll see another wave of growth from AVOD, we think, because that's where the growth is going to come from, the big growth, the accelerated growth in the next few years.
Thank you very much. Jérôme.
Yes. Let's see, just introduce underneath the just to let you know what is our activity and to be able to have an idea about in which area we make some business. Université is a French company based in France, but quite internationally based. Université is digital distribution. I mean, in other words, sometimes we say aggregator, which is maybe a term you know. And we say very simply that we made interfaces between right holders and platform. And interfaces mean all the stuff we need to have the film exploded on the platform. I mean, on a legal way, on a technical way, on a marketing and promotion area, and so on. And of course, financial one, which is not the last. Roughly, we work with as well global platform. Global platform in our vocabulary mean iTunes, Amazon, Google, and so on, Microsoft. And also, as well, local platform in the main territory in Spain, for instance, Philippe, Movistar, Rakuten, in France, Orange, and so on. Our priority is that we have a global coverage of the market. I mean, we are able to distribute films over, more than 100 territories. Thanks to an organization which is spread over, I think, 10 local regional offices in Europe, of course, in North America, Latin America, and Asia. We work with more than 600 right holders, and I mean right holders mean all type, all origin. It could be either producer, sale agents, local distributors. Every company which owns the right, we are not able for many reasons or don't want to expose their rights, could be potentially come to us with to have their film distributed. We have a catalog of 600 movies, which is quite a lot. I will go on with that. Digital mean volumes, essentially. And in my presentation, I will share some ideas, some vision. I would say on the content side, because I'm on distribution content side, and maybe to mark the opportunities that digital shift means and could raise to the movie industry and so on. So I guess I will be a little bit positive and optimistic, even of course things are not so easy than it looks like. Of course, I will not go into the detail of the slide. I just will drop you the main idea because it's could be so the first idea is we probably have a huge growing market in the forthcoming years, which is not one market, is the addition of many markets, as we mentioned, VOD, transactional, AVOD, streamer, and so on. Like globally, the market will rise. And we think that is a big opportunity for the film industry. Why? Because digital, compared to what we used to know in the industry previously, as we know it before, digital bring the capacity to reach the audience much more easily than before. In a term of audience for each film, which public could be interesting by such a genre, and of course, in terms of geography, it's much more easy to distribute widely and maybe intentionally and overall basis the film. That was not so easy when you have to distribute a film to theatrical and so on. We think that the digital will be an opportunity for adding what we call the low-cost movie, which is not very attractive name, but it's independent films that are not produced in a traditional channel, and most probably with very lower cost than usual. And we think it's an opportunity for new talent to reach an audience. Value, of course, because digital can afford to bring value when it was before not so easy to bring value for a film, just because the market was full of gatekeepers to deliver theatrical, to deliver on videos. There was some barrier, and digital is much more open distribution channel. And time to market, because it's very easy to distribute a film within a few days, weeks, worldwide. Very easy because it's digital, so the signal is very rapid to be shared. This is just to see that platform now runs the film industry, so I have to pray for my church, but yes, it is. I will run, and we tend to see things on the movie industry that show that things are changing. We see, as I said, a former confidential movie which can reach their community audience, specifically with social media and alongside distribution very well. We have now big film or big well-known director that can be directed for platform, Roma, and there are many others after that. We have now, which is quite most substantially blockbuster. We tend to be released in the same time as the theatrical. June was the first example. Even if Warner just give up this strategy recently, that's it's a tendency to have the digital quite close, except in France, of course, with many reasons, close to the theatrical. And we have, in example, we well know, a huge opportunity to have a film catalog to be exploited on digital platform, because they are available on platform anytime, anywhere, everywhere. When it was difficult to see, or unless you watch a TV or you wait to catch it on DVD. So we have an opportunity to widen the disponibility of the catalog. The other thing is that we and it's quite in relation with what we say, we tend to see what could be the key factor for this market and for the platform, and on the content side, what we are going to organize or to be successful. We know that the digital need volumes. That's a fact. They need variety. I mean, it's an example. You can find many things on Netflix, not only blockbuster, not only you can find very niche product if you want, and it's quite. And as you know, Netflix is not doing that by romanticism. They do that because they know that you have the blockbuster and the big release, and you have a documentary on a very, and it's a strategy that based on their of course studies. You need to have velocity and to have something to refresh the offer very rapidly. We on our side we see the cycle because we have at the distributor we have the result of the sale sometimes every day, and we see that the curve of the sale are very rapidly goes rapidly and go down very rapidly because it looks like people on the platform are quite looking for new release. Even if it's new or a real new release or even it's a catalog. But they need to have a refresh of that. And value, of course, value means value not in a large way, but value for a kind of audience. If you have a film on the surf, you have to have a good film on the surf, and not just a film on the surf because you say, there are many people who want like surf. So you have to have value for a certain kind of again, something that is in relation, it's our analysis. We think that platform can rely on utility on Hollywood, quite obvious, because Hollywood provide a good film with good value, but there's not so much. The production is not so high. The variety, more or less, because we have lots of franchise and tend to be always the same thing, most. Velocity, no, because it takes time to produce 100 million films, so you have to wait for the film to be produced. And value, yes, of course, but rely on something that could be linked to the theatrical and a huge marketing campaign. So, platform, unless you, of course, you are established, it's not so quite to rely on Hollywood to have this offer of movies. And neither on the original. Why? Because it costs a lot to produce original. Let's see Netflix that when they lose 10%, 7% on the market shares, they drop. It seems to be very, very sensitive. Variety. Yes or not, the series tends to be always produced in the same pattern, it seems, and it seems to be difficult to find new subjects. The subject and the original subject are not infinite, so it's difficult to renew the genre. Velocity, not so easy again, you have to produce a series over 1 season, 2 seasons, so it takes time. And value, of course, they could attract more. A graph which shows what we said, the comparison between the number of studio and non-studio. You see that the market is quite growing with the non-studio production, which is for us the good news, because of course we're not operate on this, with a major company, we do it on their own. And for us, it's a wide field of this. So, conclusion is welcome to new cinema, because we think that we will have a few blockbusters, and it's a chance for more any kind or more diversity kind of movie to reach the audience. we used to have a market dominated by studio. It will be the case, but on a very limited area of mainstream blockbuster, Disney and integrated scheme. So for the rest of the industry, it's okay. They will use their own with a lot of business and with huge resources. But on the other side, we have to create something else for to bring diversity and creating product talents. And we have to think about new business model, which is a big issue, to imagine how to produce, to finance, not only with the scheme we used to have with pre-sales, theatrical, international, but maybe directly to digital, and to think about how to balance the investments and the return, just because the model are not so. When you think about SVOD, it's quite difficult today. We know and agree that the market will grow, but it's very difficult to have a model of and to try to forecast the model of money for because you're based on CPM, and when you are on the CPM is not the same for everybody at the same time. So how do you, as people that you have cover some investment, to say, okay, I will make maybe 1 million on SVOD, but I don't know exactly how many money I will add, because the algorithm of Google for the publicity is not very easy to catch. So it's, to conclude, it's a very interesting and promising market, but not so easy to understand and to follow.
Thank you very much for this analysis. So you all mentioned industrial acceleration and competition for talent, for ideas, for velocity, for diversity also, which is the key factor for the future, and remaking business models. What do you think from your point of view? You have analyzed the content formats for Cerimania last year, and you showed us many things about creativity and diversity and originality.
Yes. Yes. So your question is what's
the key traits actually in programming and producing? I think you made a study about producing and the key factors.
Yes. I mean, the session I did at Cerimania was about something which is quite specific. So everyone knows about formats. We all know about things like Big Brother, where an entertainment show gets bought and remade in a localized version. And it was less common for this to happen with scripted content, with dramas. So the presentation I was doing at Cerimania was about a growing trend for broadcasters to buy a format for a scripted series and remake it. So Call My Agent 10% is one very good example of that, because the producers have sold that to multiple different countries where it's been remade. And this is something that Netflix, for example, has done a lot. The American television market is there's still an enormous amount of production that's done for broadcast television, as I'm sure you know, and the American networks actually originate a high volume of scripted shows, comedies and dramas every year. If they don't work, they just pull them off the schedules. If they're not happy after 3 seasons, they just stop them. So a lot of the series that Netflix started picking up were what you call off-network shows which already had an audience, but not a big enough audience for the broadcasters, but was good enough for Netflix to think we'll continue this. And this is, so that's one part of that trend. Another part of that trend is what you might call traditional broadcasters, so linear broadcasters in many different countries, like France Télévisions and TF1, are buying tried and trusted or proven drama series and remaking them in their local market. And I think the reason that that subject was chosen by Cerimania was quite interesting and quite pertinent, because they were saying, if you look at something like Squid Game or Casa de Papel, they are successful worldwide. Squid Game was #1 on Netflix in almost every country apart from South Korea, with a couple of other ones when it was launched. So they do produce these shows, which, as I was saying before, one of the innovations they've done is to show consumers content from other countries which a linear broadcaster would never have commissioned. An American broadcaster would never show a dubbed or subtitled series in prime time. It just wouldn't happen unless there were a cable channel. So their idea, I mean, Surrey's main idea was that there's no future in adaptation because everybody's just happy to watch subtitled with dubbed content, but actually they're not. So, I mean, one part of the trend is that local content is still as important as it ever was, and that's not just for regulatory reasons. We heard a lot about the content quotas being introduced in different European countries. Consumers want to see local stories which resonate with them, which make sense, local context, and so on. But there's also an appetite for non-local content. And I think, I'm not going to contradict myself, but another observation we've made is that we also track viewing of titles on demand. So we have independent data, not Netflix released data on what shows are doing particularly well locally. And if you look at a country like France, if you look at the top 10, only 2 or 3 of the titles will actually be French. So what that suggests to me is that consumers in France go to Netflix because it's Netflix, because it has non-French content. They will follow a French series if it's good, if it's of interest to them. But then it's not necessarily part of Netflix's local attraction, but it has a lot of French content. It's different in some markets like Korea, Japan, where people don't watch as much sort of non-local content. So I think what I'm trying to say in answer to your question is that yes, generally what we have seen is a boom in commissioning of programs, a lot of it from the streamers. They do often have a very restrictive attitudes to rights if you're a producer. So you're basically normally just being pushed to a sort of US model of being a work for hire producer where you just get a commission. You don't actually keep the rights. You can't build your own distribution business because you don't have any of the rights. They're all taken by the streaming platforms. So I think one thing is that, yes, it's very good if you're prepared to work on that basis, but not necessarily as good if you want to see more independent producers kind of making the step up from being small to medium size, which they have to do with their own library of IP of rights. But I think that is changing. I think Netflix, as its financial position changes, is apparently becoming more open to do more co-production style deals. Amazon does do co-production, so Amazon doesn't always take global rights. The Rings of Power is an exception. Mostly they will buy rights for a limited number of territories or languages. So it's an evolving, we have seen an enormous inflow of investment in new programming. And I think that investment will probably come more from AVOD than SVOD in the future. And I think you can see there are possibly signs that producers will perhaps get more opportunities to retain rights than they do at the moment. But we'll have to see.
Thank you very much. I had the last question, and then I'll ask the audience to ask their own questions. According to some academic results, SVOD actually impacts the geography of content production and catalog configuration, and big streamers' investment regarding original content does reinforce existing discrepancies between large and small states in Europe, meaning that the investment goes to the UK, to France, to Germany, to Italy, but not to the others. But you're suggesting that evolving rights deal actually help to evolve the strategy.
Yes, the first thing is that I think that people are looking for different content from linear channels and streamers, for instance. There's a study coming from the Arcom last week saying that regarding linear channels, among the first 10 best views on TV, those 10 were French. I mean, it was dealing about fiction. So no acquisition and no foreign content. So I think that people are looking for national content, national-based content on linear and foreign content in streaming. That's the first thing. And the second one is that I think that there's a move in the economic models, because I agree with Jérôme about the wonderful opportunities for cinema digital, but I'm worrying about the economical model and DTT, digital, direct to digital. Because first, direct to digital or AVOD, I mean, you don't have the same economic base than on SVOD. And it means that content is content production is changing as well. For instance, in fiction, and fiction represents, let's say, 60% of the production. And I don't have the figures in mind right now, but let's say 50%, and 20% might be documentaries, and 20%, or even 30% animation, and 20% and 10% documentaries. But on the fiction, formats are becoming more and more shorter and shorter, because we used to have 90 minutes content, then we had 52 minutes, then we had 20 minutes, and now there's huge productions of 10 minutes content. And this deals with the ability of the viewers to be focused on the same content for 80 or 52 minutes, but it also deals with the economic models and the fact that AVOD conduct will change. And the third thing is the harmonization of content. Because on linear channels, when you have the opportunity, because I think that we mostly talk about cinema and fiction, but it's surprising to see how much we have, we have mostly almost fiction on streamers, and no talk shows, no documentaries. I mean, very good documentaries or different documentaries, because we have those documentary series. Like, it's like fiction. I mean, I don't know if you've seen the ones on Netflix, but it's like fiction. It's documentary, but it's quite different from the type of political documentaries or animal documentaries, etc., etc. We used to have on linear TV. And obviously also some kind of cinema or different fiction. So it's changing the way changing the economical model, the way we watch TV, and it harmonized on a dangerous basis the kind of content produced. And I'm coming from a public TV. And I can say that I'm very concerned about the collapse of a certain kind of content production, like certain documentaries or certain political talk shows, etc. And perhaps that we all have to think about it, and to think about if tomorrow we have less and less strong linear channels, it might be a change in democracy about how we say, the education via the content produced by streaming.
Thank you for pointing out the geopolitical, geocultural side of the problem. So ask the audience to raise questions for our distinguished guest.
I have a question. Thanks for the interventions. Interesting. I have a question for both distributors. Now I'm thinking with the new competition of platforms, in the last 5-6 years changed the condition of negotiation and distributors. I mean, the diversity of players improve better conditions, worse conditions, different type of negotiation. I mean, I don't know, for example, you talk about, you negotiate, for example, with filming or with filming, for example, I don't know what is the relation, if it's a percentage over a pay-per-click or paper stay in the catalog. I imagine that Netflix is a totally different relation, maybe because it's a subscription, we don't demand it's not X money for X time, or include clauses of percentage of play. So I don't know how it's working now, these negotiations. I mean, especially this thing that changed a lot in the last year to maintain similar conditions. I understand that there are clauses of confidentiality, but in general,
I would answer to you in a different manner. Of course, there was different model, and it changed a lot, and sometimes it's quite difficult to have a precise view on what will be and what there will be. But I would say that it's not really the matter of the matter, is that we are in front of either global platform. You know, when Amazon changed their rates, you can do nothing. You just have to say, okay, they change. You used to. In Amazon, you have at least 3 different models. You can have a fee. When you sell to Amazon a fee. You can have on a TVOD a rate upon rental and etc. And on Amazon Prime, you can put film where you have a fee by seconds view. And so the question is not to say is it good or not, is it worthy or not. The question is, you have a film, and as a distributor, we try to be working for the producer, for the talent. You have to assume: is it a model that can bring some revenue, and is it an additional revenue? And that's the main problem. And of course, I would prefer to sell a film on electronic sales floor and have a net revenue of €700 than having 1 second watch on Amazon for €0.00. No. But if I spend my time to think about that, I wouldn't do anything. I just have to think about where the audience and which kind of audience sees that film on this way, which is free. Of course, it's free, but it's free for them, and which people could be able to could accept to pay €10 for having or €5 to run the film for 24 hours, and it's the main challenge. So to conclude, model taken itself is not a matter; it's a whole which is very the matter, and how to manage a whole, and of course with the diversity of model. And most likely on an international level, and most likely for a different kind of audience, which is again not so bad. And after that, you can see what's at the end. You bring back to the right audience.
And as far as I'm concerned, in the last couple of years, 3 things have changed. First, the regulation. Country by country, let's say at least in Europe, we talked about this the smart decree, these obligations of investment. Secondly, the competition, the rise of the competition between streamers, which is becoming stronger and stronger. And thirdly, the windows adjustment, which means those 3 elements conduct to the key word is exclusivity, because each platform wants its own exclusivity. So if they purchase on a free purchase basis, and they compete in order to have the best windows in this, or they prefer to produce and to have the exclusivity of their programs, which is quite important. So yes, it is. Philippe and Anna.
So thank you very much for your intervention. It was so interesting. I have a question about a debate that is very important in the academic sphere about data-driven creation. As an observer of the industry, do you think that it exists, or is it only a discourse?
Apparently it exists. Yes, I can tell you it's amazing. I mean, I'm not working for streamers, I don't know the way they work. But for instance, we co-produce with them, and they come saying that we need I don't know, women, 2 Black persons, 3 blah blah blah. We need the story to be this kind and not this kind, etc., etc. Based on data. It's surprising.
It's not new. There is some editorial demands, but do you think that since the development of algorithmic devices, these demands are more precise and more developed? And are they differentiated when you consider the different platforms?
Yeah, it's quite different from Disney, the Netflix and Amazon. They don't have the same rules, internal rules. But they have, is it called, there's an internal, I'm sorry, I don't remember very well, but there's data and they have some internal policies about what they want in each kind of program. You heard of it? Based on data as well. And it's very important. So you can't propose a program to be co-produced or pre-buy if there's not. So that's why they want to pre-purchase. It's because they have to add their own items in the programs in order to fulfill.
I think you have another not so different. But I think in your question, there's 2 aspects. There is the data linked to which field. The data, I would say, are on the low level, and try to catch the data to say, okay, this kind of thing with a girl, with a boy, or and of course it exists, but no, people will find that it works. They will do 1, 2, 3, and after that it will follow down, and something else will rise. And it's marketing. So even it's marketing much more deep than it used to be before, because you have much more data and more precise by people and so on. So it's done very more precisely than we used to do on marketing research. But there is something much I would say much difficult to consider is, I guess, that Netflix, GAFA on so is working on something different. I think they're working on to try on the deeper level to try to understand what is driving the emotion of the people and the reaction of the people in terms of we say neuroscience, cognitive, and so on, with regard much more deeper things than is it an action and so on. And when you think that it's when you think about Amazon and so on, it's not far from Facebook. And we know that Facebook used to work on this thing. They probably used to work on it, but of course we don't know exactly what's there. But which could be something very different. When they try to catch which drive our emotion and try to transform it into a program, I would say we have some concern to have, I guess.
They do that with trailers. They started doing it with trailers, adapted to each subscriber, and they adapt each trailer to each user based on cognitive analysis. So they started already.
And of course, this company would have much more means, resources, and we could have in Europe, unless we can compete. Most probably, find it very difficult to compete on this side. So,
and if you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the producer, so I just make 2 points. One, which was that when Netflix started, particularly in America, the fact that it didn't have advertising breaks was presented, at least to creatives, as a major change. So they didn't need to follow a strict episode format. They could do 35 minutes or 43 minutes in the next episode. And actually, if you look at Netflix dramas, they're not very structured. They're often very different lengths. And for producers in America who were used to this rigorous system where there's an ad break after 10 minutes, you have to have a climax in the action. You can't end on a down note because everyone's going to switch off. It was a sort of liberation from, at least from the producers I've spoken to. That was then. It's different now. They do a lot more international production. They clearly use a lot of algorithms, as you were saying, just even in whether presenting and promoting programs. But they were certainly seen as being leaving people to make creative decisions and not intervening too much editorially. Maybe that has changed. I'm not a producer. I don't have those conversations. But that was certainly the sort of what set Netflix apart in the beginning.
Anna, thank you very much for your very, very interesting talks. I would like to ask the same question that Nacho, but from the other side of the fence. It's not what selling policy is, but your acquisition policy, in particular to your own. What are the modalities? Where do you find content? Is this content from lineups or fresh content, or is rather catalog content? And Catherine is more which role plays platform in your acquisition policy? So I don't know who wants to start.
My acquisition policy addressing let's say 25% of our sales. So I'm working for a public on TV, and who previously didn't want to deal with platforms because of geopolitical reasons. And so they just reopened the sales, let's say 2 years ago. There was this case of Call My Agent sold to Netflix, and it was quite complicated. But let's say 2 years ago, they reopened the availability of co-productions or free sales to platforms. But it's on a case-by-case basis, and it's very scarce. So on which we sell, but we pre-sell or co-produce for the reason I just mentioned. And it might represent, but it's huge amounts, of course. And first you have in terms of the figures, first you have the platforms, then you have linear, and then you have digital, and then you have AVOD. But AVOD is quite complicated because there's no NG. You know the way we sell is an NG, and so there's no money paid by the AVOD streamers. Only it's on a revenue share basis. So that, yeah, and it might be something like 25% of our revenue. I mean, the streamers.
It's not an easy question. We are quite agnostic with regard to content we've been proposed, just because we are sort of service company, and every film that has not a chance to have been sold and distributed in separately could come to us and provide, and we can provide the services to distribute it where we want. We just make a filter with regard to film, and to analyze the film with regard what the platform is able to accept. As we know, Google, iTunes has some filter with regard to film, and when we see we have no chance to pass the QC, or say, okay, don't. But we are not filtering, because we have films that not have been distributed. And it's very difficult to have an idea about films that have been produced. Sometimes they are not all shared, but sometimes when it's a film that they produce and so on. But for many reasons, they don't have the chance to meet the audience. And we are here to try to make something. That's something that means to push the film everywhere. So it's quite a different approach than to have something like editorial marketing and so on. It's quite an open, and where I say it's a volume, and we are not in a position to provide a sort of editorial and so on. We make editorial with regard to the platform because we know that sometimes some films are not there on such a platform. That's all. But our goal is to have the widest range of distribution we can provide to the film, or any kind of film.
And you can understand where people contact you rather than with prospects.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes, it is. Most likely it is.
Other questions? Yes.
Really, all the questions to respond now, but I was wondering, hearing all this on Windows and complexity of Windows and the periods becoming shorter than the type of devices that new Windows added. There is a discussion in a number of other countries other than France of whether governments should play a more active role in this. And then in other contexts, you have discussions on whether governments should just abandon it and just leave it entirely to the market. I was wondering what the panel's opinion is on this.
The question. You were wondering how to have the balance between the government and
whether
regulation
policymakers, regulators should play a more active role in developing legislation for Windows, or whether we should just abandon it more and leave it entirely up to the market, because regulations can hardly follow with what's happening in practice.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. For all these political reasons we mentioned previously, of the kind of content which will be produced, etc. And I've worked with the DGNIC in France and Ministère de la Culture and ARCOM and blah 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 in order to have discussions on the TNT decree and the SMED decree and the the other decrees and laws in France. And I was surprised on the huge gap between their comprehension and the reality of the market. And I think that their comprehension is so influenced by the different lobbies that they have a very specific comprehension of the market, which is not mine, obviously. For instance, I'm representing this state-owned linear channel, and I have to sell all the content produced by my channel. But there's two regulations in France. The first one is the Accord Mandat of 1996, saying that I can't have the sales rights of a content in case the producer has its own sales team, okay? And it deals with co-production. And the second one is the TNT decree, just released, saying that in case of pre-purchase, pre-achat, I can't have the distribution rights, the sales rights, in case the producers have say own teams, or for instance in France, as everywhere in Europe, all the producers are constituted in huge groups. You have Media One, New Web, etc., etc., and they all have their sales team, which means that I had something like 10% of the whole France Télévisions content production to sell. Okay, when I go to the Assemblée Nationale, when they discuss about the financing of the French public TV, the senator asked me, okay, but why don't you sell more in order to have more revenue for public TV? Because we don't want you to have redevance, so you have to sell more. Like, okay, welcome. You were so much constrained, but
that's very, public money, that's the private. Another question. The Spanish is the same.
I know, because we exchange
people money for the private sector, and you funding from the public sector. But what happened here? If I'm not a right holder in this moment,
and there was so point.
We're funding a bigger telephone thing for the public service. Just for 7 parts, no? And I say I'm paying to. Like how? What's the normal?
So I would say yes. I mean, I would love everywhere in Europe the legislator to have a role in this market. But the fact is that they are so disconnected from the market because of the lobbying that it's very complicated for them to have a clear view of what's going on, which is not a good thing because, for instance, I'm a huge player in the market of television, but for all the very small players, it's a nightmare. For instance, in France, you don't have small distributors anymore. They are all disappearing one after the other because there's no market for them. And it's a pity because if you are a creator, you might not find a good distributor for your programs because or you come to see a huge one which will not be interested in these small programs, or you have no choice. And I mean, it's the whole system works against diversity.
Short answer to you. First of all, don't take France as an example for what you have to do. Maybe it used to be true for the past because we used to have a wonderful system to finance film and so on. Perfect. But the thing is that change already, and I think that France is not able enough to adapt them, and will be much more in trouble for the future to be competitive because they used to have this wonderful system. Because, as Catherine said, well, lobby is just here to maintain their advantages. And lobby, we know where they are and who they are, but we don't when to give less. But it's not in the advantage of the industry, the revenue of the talent, and so on. So it used to be, but be careful. France is no more the example to follow. Okay, right.
Are there any other questions? Yeah, very good. Thank you for your presentations. It's very important for me to establish these contacts in the professional, being a student. And I wonder, Mr. Chung, how was the process of making under the new way from aggregator services into a co-producer more based interest? And I wonder, you were saying that you have other, like already offices around the world. I wonder if you could tell us about where are they, and you're working, for example, with Latin American initiatives, or if you have any office over there, and what's like the logic of regional implementation? Yeah.
To try to be short. On one side, our business became global. You can now manage the catalog of films all over the world. If you work only with Google, Amazon, it's very simple to put the film over 1,000 countries to be based in Paris, Los Angeles, Madrid. it's a global business, and of course it tends to be, but it could be simple, but it's not so simple. You need to have, if you want to have local content, you need to be local, because if you want to talk with a Spanish distributor or something, it's very difficult to have this concentration and to be able to speak to everybody. You have to have, you need to have, even for the language, for the youth, you have to have a local localization, the first level of it. And you know that even, for instance, iTunes or Google is on a worldwide base. They have local team that customize the local and the regional offer of each territory. You have, for instance, a programmator for Spain, and you need to speak to the programmator to be on the homepage of Google Spain or Apple Spain. And there, again, you need to have people in Spain. So it's a whole story of the local, what we said before, the mix between the global and the local. And you need sometimes you can have a very strong global because it's easy, and after that you need to have some local level which is good to have some human relationships with people, and not to be in the front of the computer and to have your machine and just push on the button to have the film and distribute. So it's like that. So digital is a mix of we say big things and very local things, and it's work like that.
But as co-producers, how are you improving these services? I mean, how do you?
No, we are pure digital technology, digital rights, and I would like.
Next step.
For the moment, yes. It's not possible.
I don't know if you want to add something to the discussion. So last, the $1 million question. What about Salto? What happens with Salto today? Because we learned this week that TF1 and CIS finished the wedding. So what about Salto? Do you want to share? Joker, you can take the Joker.
Yeah, not true. I just know that it won't be 45 million euros for television, because I think that depending on what will happen in the coming month, the price of the stake will be rediscussed, and it won't be 45. So that's not a good news for our finance. That's it. That's the only thing I know. Because you remember, it was 45 million euros. Because France Télévisions had pre-dealt its the selling of its share at 45 million euros. And it was on
the end of the
budget.
To the future.
They were sure that the deal would go on, but
so the only thing we know is that we will have to rework our budget for next year, because it will be 45. Everything is open. She wants to purchase the M6. Perhaps Sorbonne might purchase it.
You have to sell more. You have to sell more.
So good luck there. Thank you so much for participating to this roundtable, which was quite rich. And the talk was quite interesting with the audience. I don't know if Laurent and Philippe want to close the day. Thank our guests.
Yes, I think that Kira, Laurent, and I we want to thank you, all of you, and we saw in the different panels, and this last table was very interesting in this point of view, how deep are the transformation in the filière. So we're not going to close the questions, On the contrary, we raised a lot of questions, and I hope that in a few months, next year, we will meet after working on that topics. So thank you so much for your participation and all the debate we had. On my point of view, it was very rich. So thank you very much to you, all of you.
Dear friends and colleagues, I share everything that Philippe and Kira said, and I'm sure we have the same point of view. This colloquium is really interesting, inspiring, and we want to go further, and for many reasons. But I would say a few reasons. First, the international dimension, and thank you for our colleagues from so many countries. So it's so important to have this kind of vision, of course, international, transnational vision, but also local, because it's so special. For example, when you speak about the exception policy in Spain, is quite different, and it is interesting from the point of view of France, international. Secondly, I would say a very high level on conceptual, theoretical, epistemological point of view. We have to be very sharp and ambitious about the way we think, because you say that, Jérôme, it's so complex, evolving. So we have to have this kind of ambition. And third, and with Kira and with Philippe, we work so many ways, we work for many years in this perspective, the importance to have actors, to have people that have experience, they are decision maker, they face the situation. And what you say about the kind of gap we have between political deciders and regulators and the reality, it's amazing, you know. So I suppose, I hope, I'm sure that our work is very useful, because here it's neutrality, we are agnostic, we just want to help and to understand what's going on. So thank you for everyone. It was really a wonderful conference. Thank you very much.